We're pretty much all the way there. I mean, in fact, at this point, we do have an app that will generate a random fortune every time we click the button. But let's add some little details to make this app even cooler. What I'd like to do now is change the background color every time that we click the new fortune button to make every new fortune be a little bit more dramatic. Let's go back to Android Studio and add a list to hold a bunch of different colors. We'll define it up here so we can access the list from anywhere. Our list is going to be of type string because we're going to hold the hexadecimal code for each color. And since this is going to be a list of colors, we'll call it colors. In the onCreate method, we'll initialize the list just like we did for the fortunes using this new array list. I'm going to do this above. So colors equals new array list. And add your semicolon. Now we can use the same method .add in order to add a bunch of colors. I'm going to add 5 different colors. Parentheses, quotations, and then a semicolon. We'll add our colors within the quotations here. But first, let's copy this a couple times. Cool. So now we just need 5 cool hexadecimal colors. Do you know any hexadecimal colors off the top of your head? I don't either. But I do know a great website where we can easily select from a bunch of different palettes. In your browser, type in www.coolors.co. All right. Now you can log in and store your favorite colors, but for what we're going to do, we're just going to use the browser. So go up here to click browser, and we're presented with all these great color palettes. So if you don't like any of these, you can click this right arrow and you can search through all kinds of different palettes that are meant to work well together. Now I encourage you to look through here and find one that you like. I want some contrast so it's really striking when our background color changes. So I think I'm going to choose this palette right here. In order to see this, I'm going to click View here. It's going to ask us if we want to watch the tutorial. I suggest that you do at some point, but now we're going to skip that. Okay, great. So here are all our different colors. And notice here are the hexadecimal values for them. So now we'll go to our hexadecimal color code here, select it all by double clicking, right click, copy, go back to Android Studio and paste. Excellent. Now it left out the hash symbol or the pound sign, so we're going to add it there. Go back, let's get this next color, copy, back to Android Studio, paste, and add the pound or the hash symbol. Back here, copy, back to Android Studio, paste, add our pound sign. Almost done. Copy, back to Android Studio, paste, and add our pound sign. Let's get this one. Copy, back to Android Studio, and paste and add our hash symbol or pound sign. Great. So now we have a list containing all the hexadecimal codes for all those colors. Now what we need to do is set our background to one of these colors. So before we start generating random ones, let's just make sure that we can set the background of the app when it first loads. So anything we want to do on first loading, we're going to set in the onCreate. Just like we set the initial fortune when the screen loaded, we're going to set the initial background color. Let's get the color and store it in a variable. Now, these code or hash color codes are strings, right? They're letters and numbers, and it's a string of them. So let's make a string called color. And let's start off with the third color. Do you know what index point that is? Well, 0, 1, 2. Yeah, the third item is actually going to be index 2. So string color equals colors dot get at location, right? This is where we put the index point. So here I'm going to say 2. And we're going to add a semicolon there. Now that we have the hexadecimal code for the color, we need to turn it into an integer because that's what Android Studio wants in order to set the background color. But they have given us a handy method to do so. So since we're going to be turning this into an integer color, we're going to call this color as int. And it's going to be of type int. And remember, int uses the lowercase I. So color as int equals color dot parse color. So this is the method that we're going to use to process our hash code. So parse color, and then I can now type in color into that. So what this is going to do is it's going to say it's going to run this parse color operation, this method on color. So color, remember, is going to be this hexadecimal code, and we're going to process it using this color.parseColor. That's going to turn it into an integer. So now we have color as int. Now this is what we can plug in to set the background. Now remember, what are we setting the background of? Let's go back to our layout to see. Up here at the tab, we're going to access the activity fortune.xml. And I'm going to click here to view the design. And let's close this over here on the right to get a little more screen real estate. Now, where did we set the background color originally? Was it the image view? No, it wasn't. It was actually in the absolute layout. So just like in order to talk to the text field, we had to give it an ID and then use the find view by ID method to find it and link it. We're going to do the same thing with the absolute layout. It'd be nice if we could just double click on the absolute layout in order to give it an ID. But every time I do that, this image view is coming up because the image view takes up the whole screen. It's in front of that. But there's an easy way or another way to set the ID. If I select absolute layout, in the properties, I can set the ID. So let's use the same convention. Remember, we used a lowercase 2 initial system like TV for text view. Since this is absolute layout, I'll call this AL, and then we'll call this background. Since it's the background, right? AL tells us that it's an absolute layout, and the background tells us what it is, what its function is. So let's go back to our Java, and here we'll set up a line of communication to it. Remember, this is of type absolute layout. Here it is. And don't be alarmed that it's crossed out. That just means that Android Studio is trying to say, hey, there's a better way to do this. There's a different layout. It's called relative layout. But for our methods, we're specifically choosing absolute layout. So absolute layout, let's name the variable the same thing that we named the ID. So here, AL background equals find view by ID. We're gonna look in the R folder. We're gonna look for the ID, and now we're gonna type in what ID we gave it. Remember, it was AL background. And don't forget your semicolon. Okay, now it's giving us this big error message. Do you remember why? Can you remember? Yeah, it's because this is saying find a view by ID, but you're putting it in something called an absolute layout. So we can just fix this by casting it as an absolute layout. There we go, problem solved. Now we have a line of communication. So now what we need to say is AL background dot set background color right here to int color. So remember when we did this parse color thing to change the hexadecimal into an integer color as int? Well, this is why we did it, because set background color wants an int. So set background color to color as int. Okay, so we set it to this third color here, right? That's actually index 2, 0, 1, 2. Let's see what the third color was. That's this light blue. Let's run our app and see if it actually starts with the background, the color light blue. Awesome. Just as we expected, we were able to set the color programmatically. The next step will be to change to a different color using a random number generator. And we're going to do that the exact same way that we did for the random fortune.